Welcome back to Power in Politics. Tomorrow, 6 party leaders, yes, 6, will face off in the only official English language debate of this election. They'll do it all again in French on Thursday. What's at stake for each of them? We're here with the Power panel, Eric Grenier, Rob Silver, Kathleen Monk, and Corey tonight. Corey, I'll start with you. Given what our previous discussion around the sort of stagnant nature of things at this point, do you think the stakes are higher in this debate, or is that concept overblown?
No, I think the stakes are very high because it's a really close race, and I think depending on which poll you're believing in, I think the Conservatives have a couple-point advantage on the Liberals right now in the national vote. But I think, as I said earlier, I think the Liberal vote's probably a bit more efficient. But it's safe to say, no matter what poll you believe, it's a very tight race. And anything at this point in a race this tight that can shake the table a bit is very meaningful. And debates always have that potential. Normally they don't, but they have the potential always to do that. I think this will be particularly interesting because it's kind of debate we haven't seen before. So many leaders on the stage, so many moderators on the stage. It's going to be confusing. I think we'll have Max Bernier there on this one. I think that will be interesting. I think it's actually going to moderate and make Andrew Scheer look more mainstream, but it also has the potential to open up a right flank on him, which might damage him a bit. So I think there's a lot of interesting things going on, but it's important because it's so close.
Yeah, Rob hit a couple of things there. Or sorry, Corey hit a couple of things there, Rob. The number of people on the stage, the number of people participating, even just the leaders, 6 leaders, combine that with the polls right now. What kind of strategy do you think parties are employing going into this, given that set of factors?
I think if I were advising the Prime Minister, much like with Jean Chrétien, with Stephen Harper, when you're the Prime Minister, if you survive these debates relatively unscathed, you've had a good night. If you get any more than that, that's bonus and that's gravy. He'll be attacked. I think he'll be attacked probably more consistently and more focused than he was in the TV debate. But as Corey says, there will be 5 other leaders on stage, 5 moderators. If the moderators don't speak for a second, which my guess is they will as questioners, that's 20 minutes over 2 hours per leader. It's not a lot of time, but this is their big shot. But there's the other sub-dynamics. Corey mentioned Maxime Bernier, Andrew Scheer. There still is the Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May dynamic. And then, of course, the bloc leader. And as we saw from Gilles Duceppe, who was declared as the winner, I think, of 14 consecutive English debates, he has the easiest job in the world to come up there. He's going to get up there and stand above the fray and say, I'm standing up for Quebec. He may speak a little bit about francophones outside of Quebec in terms of some of Doug Ford's cuts, but he has the easiest job, but he still gets time, he still gets questioned, and he can attack whoever he wants. So there's a lot of dynamics beyond just let's focus on the Prime Minister, though I'd expect that in this debate.
So what should a viewer do, I guess, at home watching this? I think pay attention to the opening and closing statements. That's the opportunity where the party leaders have a chance to frame up how they want to frame up the debate, how they want to come across to voters. Justin Trudeau's going to have to address the blackface revelations. He's going to have to try to get ahead of it, but actually without naming them. So he'll probably say, I've not always been perfect, I'm going to try better. Watch how the leaders position themselves in those opening statements.
Eric, what do you think about the potential for the debate to move I mean, there's so much I've read lately, and I've been interested in it about historical instances in which it did. I mean, it's pretty rare where a debate will move things, but I wonder in the current context if the chances of that have increased.
Well, what often happens in debates is that something happens that accelerates the momentum that was already building. So that it can often have like that sort of contribution to what's happening in the trends, but because we haven't really seen anything like that, it's hard to know what would happen that would continue a trend that's already building. A couple of things that I'll be watching. Andrew Scheer didn't have a particularly good debate, TVA. Granted, the English-Canadian audience wasn't reading it. They did read, or watching it, but they did read the coverage of it afterwards. And so the expectation's already going to be that he needs to have a good performance. The other thing is, I'd like to see if Jagmeet Singh is going to go after Justin Trudeau a little bit more, because he didn't do that in the French language debate, but he has to do that in the English language debate, because obviously they're fishing in the same pond. Okay, as I normally do on Sundays, I'm going to ask you guys to take off your partisan hats for a second, and as sort of unbiased as possible, Corey, your analysis of what the biggest challenge for Andrew Scheer will be in this debate.
I'll say not only for Andrew, but I think for all the leaders, it's to remember that debates are primarily watched by decided voters. And that in combination with that, 20 minutes if the moderators speak nothing, you take off opening and closing statements. I think these leaders have about 10 minutes of airtime each. So you better be very, very, very efficient in what it is you're trying to bring across. And to get a payday clip on what your ballot question is out, no matter what the question is, no matter what the circumstance is, and then you're going to push it out through digital means and other things to voters who aren't watching the debate, which are all the ones that matter, because the undecided voters, the marginal voters, are the ones who will decide this election with it being this close. And those are the people who tend not to tune in. So remember, the most important audience isn't watching, and you have almost no time to get your point across.
Rob?
I think Corey made a very good point. The only thing I'd say beyond just the two debates, because there's also a French debate on Thursday,
yes,
and while nobody at home will feel sorry for the campaigns at all, they're very disruptive debates. They're important, so I'm not saying they shouldn't happen. They're very important, but you've seen the leaders. They limit the tour you can do. They take a lot of time to get ready from, and then you come off it and you need to frame what just happened for the very reasons Corey just said. So it's also who can continue to push the message beyond the debates in a week where, and remember, there's only 2 weeks left, where from a time perspective, and the most valuable resource a campaign has is the leader's time, a lot of the time this week, if not almost all the time this week, is going to be dedicated to performing. Can they continue to find other creative ways to get a message through this week? And
that's when, just to build on Rob's point, where campaigns tend to use surrogates. So they try to find deputy kind of MPs that can speak, or candidates that can speak, and can leaders tied up in debate prep. I think the thing that I would add, to put my hat on, strategy hat for Jagmeet Singh, is that, we've seen some major trust and character and value issues come out over the course of this campaign. We've seen campaigns fighting back against one another. If he can continue to, in the debate process, to get Canadians to trust him and say that they can't trust the others, that he has continued to rise above in terms of being an authentic leader and shown his character as one that has got a lot of integrity to it, he may get a few more points on a debate night.
Do you agree with Eric's assessment that he didn't really go after Trudeau as much as people might have anticipated in TVA, and that you would expect more of that in this debate?
It's always really challenging for New Democrats to attack other progressive leaders. That's something that we always have to, whether it's Justin Trudeau or whether it is Elizabeth May. But that said, I think there is an opportunity, and to rewind back to the 1984 debate and that famous line where Brian Mulroney said, "You had an option, sir," to Mr. Turner. There's a recent news story about the federal government, the Liberal government, taking back the First Nations children's case back to court. And so I think that if I was Jagmeet Singh team, I would say, you had an option, Mr. Trudeau. You had no.
So you would expect him to.
I would expect him to challenge.
Handicaps the NDP on this, and this is why they lose most elections and do poorly in most federal campaigns, is because right down to the campaign team, they actually buy into the Liberal spin. That the bigger evil is a Conservative government, and they almost collapse themselves. They don't go for the jugular against their main opponent.
But what I'm saying right now, Corey, is I'm actually saying is to say he has to actually go for the jugular in this. He actually has to attack him on integrity issues, on the fact that they have failed First Nations and they haven't delivered on their promises.
All right, we got to wrap this up.
Smart Kathleen, and I agree with you, and you're a great campaigner, and that's why you would do that and advise that. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, the pattern is often the conviction to actually do that in the debate by the leader is, and I'll bet on this one too, because we saw it in the TVA debate, the big haymakers will be thrown by Jagmeet at Andrew Scheer, not at Justin Trudeau. Well, because that's what we've seen in the other debates, and I suspect we'll see that next one, and I actually think it's illogical, because Jagmeet Singh isn't going to get votes from Andrew Scheer's voters. He's going to get them from Justin Trudeau's voters. And yet he will reserve his attacks probably primarily for Scheer. And I say that having watched the other debates where that's what he did, which is crazy, but
well, you've all given us a lot to watch for. Tomorrow evening, we'll put some money on the things that you're betting on. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to our Sunday Power Panel, Corey Tenike, Rob Silver, Kathleen Monk, and Eric Grenier.